The Dutch government refused to invest in an AstraZeneca vaccines plant in its own country, while Britain pumped in more than £20 million to boost production. Prime Minister Mark Rutte turned down an offer to help finance an expansion at the Halix plant, which makes around 5 million doses a month of the Oxford-produced jab. The factory has been at the center of a cross-channel row over immunization supplies after it was claimed AstraZeneca had used the firm to fulfill its order with the UK government. Brussels is furious at the Anglo-Swedish group after it slashed its expected shipments to member states. Bureaucrats are now threatening to blockade any exports from the Dutch factory unless they are sent to EU nations. The Halix plant, in Leiden, was only last week approved to produce jabs for the bloc by the EU's medicines regulator, the EMA. Until then, it was said to be shipping the active ingredient to be put into vials in the UK to help with our domestic vaccination drive. But while the EU has bemoaned the lack of shipments from the facility, it has emerged that the Dutch government spurned an opportunity to invest in ramping up its production capacity. Mr. Rutte rejected an approach by Oxford University scientists looking to secure £8.50 million in extra funding, according to NOS, a Dutch broadcaster. Last April, the experts approached the Netherlands as they sought to increase the number of doses they could pump out of the Halix plant. Having secured funding from London, Oxford and AstraZeneca wanted more to increase production from 200 litres per barrel to 1,000 litres. Downing Street said no to extra funding, wanting instead of invest more money domestically. On the 28th of April, 2020, Dutch MP Peter Omtzigt held talks with Mr. Rutte around the same time, hoping to secure funding for the AstraZeneca plant. A day later, the Dutch PM received a letter from Oxford scientists confirming the request for a £8.50 million cash injection. There will likely be enormous demand for vaccines if they pass the tests successfully, the letter said. Most likely, the quantities of available vaccines will be limited for several months. To avoid major delays, production capacity must now be increased. Mr. Rutte eventually turned down the opportunity to invest after AstraZeneca signaled it had secured funding from elsewhere. But UK sources claim the Dutch leader could have still invested in the Oxford AstraZeneca jab, because the cash was not requested by Halix itself. One insider said the Dutch government should have acted very proactively because Halix's production capacity had not been reserved by anyone else. Now Brussels is arguing that Britain has apparently first refusal over any doses made at the plant. EU insiders have even accused the Anglo-Swedish pharma giant of using European factories to produce doses to fulfill its contract with Britain. The drugs maker initially pledged to deliver up to 120 million doses of the Oxford-produced jab in the first 3 months of the year, but ended up lowering its commitment to 30 million. And then AstraZeneca chief Pascal Soriot said he would only supply 70 million vaccines in the second quarter, lower than the original 180 million expected delivery. As a result of the row, Brussels is calling for the lion's share of the Oxford vaccines made at the Halix plant in the Netherlands. Downing Street officials were said to be exploring sharing the production capacities at the Leiden-based facility, which can produce 5 million jabs a month, as a possible compromise with the bloc. They argue that the EU would likely be without the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine if it wasn't for substantial investments by UK taxpayers.